I love that metal grille on my window, all the scuffs of every component of the interior, the gray, unwipeable grime filling every nook, every crevice, every joint. God, I love it all. And the toilet bowl. Oh, would you know what an amazing, ineffable, and certainly unique aroma emits from that metal, slightly battered throne. It's marvelous. And the food here, oh, that's not even easy to talk about. Almost immediately, my salivary glands begin to actively produce liquid, which I have to swallow, and the feeling of hunger rushes in. Even the metal bowl I eat out of, with all its battered and wrinkled edges and scratched bottom, is perfection. Minimalism, as the common man would say, simple and tasteful. As I would say, I've never seen anything better in my life. But to go into detail with all my desire, the opportunity, alas, I have no opportunity. Going for a walk very soon. On this wonderful, life and freedom-soaked walk. So, time is extremely short, so I will start at the beginning. My entire narrative is limited to that truly marvelous time period when everything happened. What came before is completely irrelevant. Let's travel back in time 4 months. December. I don't know what time it was, for I don't have a watch, but it was getting dark and, through the slowly floating clouds, the stars twinkled in the sky. I lay, as I do every evening, wrapped up and covered with a few old down jackets, coats, and other discarded rags I had found. It was a matter of life and death, as the way of life that I and others like me were living was not safe. When the thermometer drops below 25 and you sit at home with a cup of hot tea and watch your favorite TV program or picking at the internet, reading scary stories from the Scary Stories folder. Think for a moment what those who don't have a home are doing now. Those who have to hang around the streets in search of a piece of bread, 100 grams of vodka or alcohol, and, of course, a warm corner. Like I said, it was a matter of life and death. Bastard! Get up, bitch! There was a hoarse, snapping voice above me, followed by a series of kicks, which, because of the abundance of softening materials, turned into harmless kicks. It's you, bitch. You stole Charlie. You stole him so you could eat him. Is that right? Answer me, asshole. Charlie is a shabby old dog of a man who's been kicking me, whose name is Boris, by the way. He and his dog live nearby. Admit it, asshole. Do you have nothing to eat that you decided to eat him too? Of course, I had nothing to do with the poor dog's disappearance. But there was no point in explaining anything to Boris, who was insane and, on top of that, completely drunk. And, just as I was about to kick my legs to knock him down, he landed right on top of me, tangled in my rags, and ran face first into a nearby trash can. I was too weak to push the body off me, so I just lay there, waiting for him to continue. A woman passing by gave us a judgmental look and then looked away squeamishly. I'm not used to this. I see this kind of reaction several times a day. I heard the sound of pitiful sobs and moans next to me. Boris, like a little boy who tripped and bumped, whimpered, lying on top of me. I lifted my head to see his shrunken, slightly bleeding, bearded and wrinkled face. Charlie, my poor dog. Charlie, oh, Charlie. His whining made me feel two things. I felt sorry for Boris. Perhaps an outside observer would have laughed, commenting that this was the state of drunkenness. But I could imagine what it was like to lose a friend, even a dog, when all you had in your life could be counted on your fingers. And, on the other hand, I wanted to sleep wildly, so I irritably began to shove Boris. Stop it, you fool. Get off me. I didn't touch your dog. I even caught myself thinking that I wanted to get rid of his presence as soon as possible, so as not to feel pity for this man. Ha! It sounded not far from us. A group of teenagers were passing by. What are you, fags? Boris, motherfucker. Get off me. I was at my limit, but I couldn't do anything. Charlie, poor guy. Charlie. His moans turned into an annoying howl. Finally giving up, I leaned back and squinted into the blinding light of the lamppost closest to me. Boris, after a while, also stopped moving and fell silent.
Excuse me. Can I help you?
A high, pleasant girl's voice sounded nearby, and I lowered my gaze, shading the falling light with my hand. A pleasant-looking girl, about 16 years old, I thought at first, was standing fearfully to the side and looking at us.
I asked, "Do you need help?"
I wondered how she could help. Such a fragile creature. She certainly couldn't move this immobile carcass, which by now was making it hard for me to breathe.
"Can you hear me?"
She asked again, and I shook my head approvingly, coming out of my stupor. The girl came close to us and, leaning over, whispered something in Boris's ear. I looked at what was happening with undisguised surprise. Usually it was the stinky odor emitted by a body that had not been washed for a long time that prevented a person from getting so close. I felt something fidgeting on me. It was Boris, it turned out, who finally began to rise awkwardly, nearly crushing my arm with his knee. When he got to his feet, he waddled silently along the road and disappeared around the corner. To say that I was surprised was an understatement. "But how are you?" I glanced at the girl without finishing the sentence.
"How did I what? Did I make him leave? I just asked him."
She looked good-natured and smug, but I couldn't find the words. The lack of alcohol from the night before was taking its toll. My exhausted body was begging for a drink, and my judgment was a little dulled.
"I live over there."
She pointed her finger at the 5-story building across the street.
"I live alone. My mom ran away from me. Where do you live?"
Here. I finally gave out and began to leisurely pull on the scattered rags that had covered me before and that had been torn apart by Boris. "I live right here."
"Right here?"
There was a look of surprise on her face.
"You poor thing. Well, if you want, I can help."
"How? You'll put him in your house instead of your mom's?" I smirked.
"Well, no, but I can put you somewhere. Would you like that? Well, do you want?
With childish impatient excitement, the girl began to beg for my consent. I thought she was crazy. Hadn't she been told not to talk to strangers? And even with homeless people. "Come on. I want to." I agreed, already tired and sleepy. I guess it was the only way to get rid of her.
Yay. I love helping people so much. I'm gonna make it perfect. You're gonna love it. Yay.
She shouted happily, and the shout even made me look around. I wondered if anyone would think I was picking on a defenseless girl. There wasn't a soul around, and when I looked at her again, there was no one in front of me. What the hell? I dreamed it. I froze for a minute, and then, feeling unbearably weak, I laid my head down on the soft sweater that was lying as a pillow and fell into a dream. I hadn't had such strange dreams as this one in a long time. An infinitely beautiful sandy beach. The time of day is night, but because of the bright, generously scattered stars in the sky, you can see every grain of sand. The surface of the water going beyond the horizon line doubles the number of shimmering dots. I stand on the shore. The urge to enter the water keeps me awake, but I'm so afraid of disturbing the tranquility of the sea that I walk nervously back and forth along the beach. A shooting star sails unusually slowly across the sky and fades somewhere in the distance. I take a deep breath with a full chest. It's easy to breathe. Finally, I decide to take the first step. Then another. The circles on the water coming from my feet capture the reflected stars and disturb their tranquility. Making pendulum-like movements, along with the rippling water, they begin to frantically and chaotically divide. Raising my eyes upward. In the sky, on the contrary, one by one they are extinguished, leaving only a bottomless and all-consuming darkness. I try to lower my head and look at the reflection again, but I can't. There are so many bright dots that they form a single glowing and shimmering mass of yellow. At the same time, I feel a strong vibration inside me. I felt a strong vibration inside of me. Out of nowhere, I heard a barely audible rumble, but a moment later it sounded unbearably loud. It's as if a jet airplane is flying right over me. Light is everywhere. There is nothing but light. I can feel it filling my lungs with every breath. I can't breathe. Panic, terror, and a A soft metallic clang brought me back to reality. I opened my eyes. It took me a few more seconds to fully wake up. It was still night. The sky was cloudy, and snow was falling in small flakes. The metallic rattling that I'd originally written off as part of the dream resurfaced somewhere across the street. I lifted my head. A clumsily pacing silhouette was moving leisurely toward me. He had something in his hand that was dragging on the pavement and making that sound. I don't know why, but I had an extremely bad feeling and even fear. I kept my eyes on the approaching man. Finally, passing by another lamppost, the stranger stepped into its falling light, and the whole image of the man walking towards me was revealed to my gaze. A man? I hesitate to make such a bold assertion. A balding head with wisps of gray hair sticking out in places. A wrinkled, incomprehensible face. A mouth distorted in an incredible grin, with strongly protruding gums, from which yellow, crooked and rotten teeth stick out. His clothing was a long, shabby, tattered, and in some places torn coat. The gaze of the approaching creature was fixed directly on me. I knew it was coming toward me. I finally discerned what the metallic sound was making. In its hand, it was dragging a fire axe with a long red handle across the pavement. A wild terror gripped me. At that moment, I felt like a helpless little boy in the face of something terrible and inexplicable, approaching from a dark corridor, in the smallest detail imaginable. Most likely, this effect was the result of overwhelming terror, but in the next few seconds I found myself on the road. In spite of my weakness, it was quite easy to get out from under my hiding place. Something seemed to speed up, and still waddling with its feet, it came toward me even faster. My God, what is this? I said aloud and tried to scream. But before I could shout a single word, my voice broke and I coughed heavily. I tried to run, but my cough, my sore legs, my age, and the general condition of my body prevented me from doing so. After a few steps, I fell down. The wobbly shadow had already touched me, and the distance between me and the monster was no more than 5 meters. I heard the emission of either a wheezing or even a growl. Up close, I could see its eyes. Or rather, only one eye. Instead of the other, there was only a crude scar. But even in that look, there was so much hatred and anger that there was no doubt. If nothing was done, I would be chopped to pieces. There was a shriek above me. The thing came close to me and swung its axe at me, making a ferocious sound. What a ridiculous death. So many cold nights I have under my belt. So many beatings from the order-guarding bodies. From just walking youth, so many poisonings, and to die at the hands of a monster, which are described only in scary fairy tales. Taking my eyes aside and already resigned to the inevitable, I stumbled upon a metal pin lying next to me. I don't know how I did it, but in an instant, I grabbed it and, rising to my feet, stabbed it straight into the neck of the monster, who had no time to strike. A stream of blood splashed in his face. There was a short wheeze, and then the breathless body fell to the asphalt. I don't know how to explain it, but a feeling of crazy aggression came over me. I stepped closer and, pulling the pin out of his neck, struck a few more blows to his chest. The metal went into the flesh with ease. Afterwards, a feeling of extreme fatigue came up, which I had no strength to resist, and I collapsed on the road. From the windows of the house, where the lights were on, there were surprised and worried looks at me. I didn't care.
There, you see, you've done it all.
A familiar voice sounded beside me. Standing in the shadows by the entranceway was the same girl, standing so that she was out of sight of the building's occupants.
I never doubted you.
You? What the hell is going on here? Gasping with exhaustion, I mumbled.
You did it. You helped yourself and him. He, like you, was tired of this life. He couldn't suffer anymore. However, if for you the solution doesn't have to be so radical, then, in his case, it's the only way out. Deep down, he wanted it himself, believe me.
Her voice was irritatingly calm. What are you talking about? Trying to be as coherent as possible, I said, and raised my head. The fear and horror that was still just out of my head flared up with renewed intensity. I could not believe my eyes. Next to me, bleeding, lay Boris. Next to him, with the same hole from the iron pin, his dog Charlie. Looks like he found his dog after all. And it looks like I just killed them both.
How cool was that? You never would have done it if you'd seen the real thing. But I helped you take that step.
The girl's cheerful voice echoed painfully in my head. But my mouth felt like absorbent cotton from shock. What are you?
I helped you.
With a dose of annoyance and aggression, she said.
Be so kind. Stop chewing snot. Things will be so much better now. Now he won't have to suffer. Now you won't have to live in a garbage dump.
The sound of a siren began to come from far away. Some of the tenants had called the police.
Don't worry,
she continued.
you'll be fine there. Better than here. I'll take care of it.
She came out of the shadows and squatted down beside me.
Now we'll fix it.
Bringing her lips to my ear, she whispered something. Just one word. One word that I couldn't remember, but it made my eyes darken, and I slowly began to fall asleep. The sirens sounded very close. Now I'm in a high-security penal colony, serving my 20-year sentence. But I won't live that long, so I'll be here until the end. I love that metal grate on my window, all the scuffs on every part of the interior, the gray, unwipeable grime filling every nook, every crevice, every joint. God, I love it all. And the toilet bowl. Oh, would you know what an amazing, inexpressible, and even more so, unique aroma emits from this metal, slightly wrinkled throne. Wonderful. But now it's time to go for a walk. Afterwards, there will be dinner. Then time will pass quickly and sleep will come. And like every time, I'll dream the same thing. An endlessly beautiful sandy beach. Night, the sky, generously studded with stars, each of which is copied in the reflection of the sea surface. I sit on the sand and stare into the distance. She sits next to me. We're having a conversation. She talks about how she has helped other people too. As it turns out, I'm still lucky. She puts her finger to her mouth and, with a smile on her face, looks away. I turn my head. The older woman is hesitantly about to step into the water. What about her? I ask in a whisper.
She has 4 children and her husband left her. She's so tired of it all. She can't cope. One of her kids is already on the needle, is already doomed. The others will be better off if he's gone. She'll feel better too.
She's already touched the water, and the circles are starting to fill the entire surface. I know how this is going to end.